the ones who brought the storm. The skies of Elyndra were not blue, but silver, soft and endless, unmoving as glass. The Caelari had not seen a true cloud in 1,000 years. Their ancestors once called storms the voices of the gods, but now those gods were silent, replaced by the hum of climate regulators buried beneath marble plains. To the Caelari, peace was the natural order. Emotion was a danger, chaos a disease cured long ago. Their language had no word for urgency, only variations of stillness. So when the humans arrived, they seemed like creatures out of an ancient myth. They were loud. They laughed in bursts that startled birds into flight. Their emotions rippled through every movement, from the way they clapped each other's shoulders to the way they cursed or cried without shame. The Caelari watched them with the same wary reverence one gives to a lightning storm seen from far away. Chief Engineer Mara Dawson smiled too much. Her voice carried even in open air. "We'll need to reroute the plasma conduits through the polar stabilizers," she said on the first day. "You've been overtaxing the southern grid for centuries." To the Caelari, her words were sacrilege, spoken not with calm precision, but blazing certainty. High Harmonist Valir watched her, wings folded tight against his back. "You speak of breaking balance," he murmured. "Not breaking," Mara said, wiping sweat from her brow with a grin. "Just bending it a little. Balance isn't a cage, Valir, it's a dance." Valir didn't understand, but he would, for above them, the sun of Elyndra was stirring, and something ancient was about to wake. And when it did, the humans would meet it head-on. The solar flare came without warning. At first, it was a flicker, a brief dimming of the endless silver sky. The Caelari felt it in their hearts before they saw it, an unfamiliar trembling that passed through the air like a whisper of fear. Then, the stabilizers failed. Across the horizon, clouds began to form. Real clouds, turbulent, dark, and alive. The Caelari gasped as wind tore through their city for the first time in centuries, bending glass spires and scattering petals from the floating gardens. "It's beautiful," Mara whispered, eyes wide. Valir could only stare. "It's death." Lightning arced across the heavens like veins of burning silver. The humans were already moving, grabbing packs, shouting commands, sprinting toward the control towers as the ground trembled. "We have to shut down the plasma grid before it cascades," shouted Lieutenant Ramirez, voice barely audible over the growing roar. Valir followed, stunned, as they ran toward the storm. "You cannot go out there," he pleaded. "The winds will kill you." Mara turned to him with a grin that was equal parts defiance and joy. "Maybe, but if we don't, it'll kill everyone." The wind howled, tearing at her jacket as she vanished into the storm. And for the first time in his long, ordered life, Valir felt something close to awe and terror. The storm was chaos incarnate. Rain struck like needles, the air thick with ozone and static. The humans shouted to each other through comms filled with static, their movements quick and rough, their decisions reckless yet effective. "Main conduits fried," Ramirez yelled. "Bypass it." Mara shouted back, yanking a cable the size of her arm out of a smoldering socket. Sparks danced around her, lighting her face like fire. "We've got maybe 5 minutes before the regulator goes critical." Valir, watching from the control shelter through trembling glass, could barely process what he saw. The humans were improvising, changing plans mid-action, laughing even as they bled and burned. He turned to his assistant. "Why do they not flee?" They seem to find purpose in it," the younger Caelari whispered, voice shaking, "as if the storm calls to them." Outside, Mara braced herself against a turbine, hands slick with rain and blood. "Give me manual override," she yelled. "If I can restart the flux coil, it'll stabilize the poles." "You'll die," Ramirez shouted. "Then make sure it works," she snapped, slamming the switch. A blinding flash lit the sky, white, fierce, unstoppable. And for an instant, it looked as if the storm itself bowed to her. In the shelters, the Caelari huddled together, trembling. The wind outside screamed like a living thing. The old legends said storms carried the souls of the fallen. Now, the Caelari wondered if the humans were becoming such spirits before their eyes. Valir pressed his palms against the window, his reflection warped by lightning. He had seen life and death before, in distant history texts, sterile and contained, but nothing like this. A voice crackled through the comms. "Mara's Tower 3 stabilized. 2 more to go. Ramirez coughed through static. We lost power in the west grid. I'm rerouting manually. Another flash of lightning. A tower crumpled. Valir gasped. They cannot survive that. But then, through smoke and debris, he saw figures climbing, helping each other, refusing to yield. They were singing, a rough, wordless sound carried by the storm. It wasn't pretty, but it was alive. They sing, Valir whispered, incredulous. In this? Yes, murmured his assistant. They are celebrating. Outside, Mara stood atop the half-collapsed tower, face turned toward the raging heavens. Come on, she shouted at the lightning. You're not done with us yet. The sky answered with thunder, and Elyndra trembled, not from the storm, but from the humans who refused to bow to it. Hours passed, or perhaps centuries. Time had no meaning within the tempest. Valir lost count of the flashes and crashes. All he knew was that the storm did not consume them. It changed them. The humans were creatures of movement and will, defying nature by sheer force of emotion. One by one, the stabilizers came online again. The winds began to ease. Then came silence. Valir stepped outside the shelter for the first time, feeling the wet ground beneath his bare feet. The air smelled of metal and rain, sharp and new. He saw them then. The humans, gathered near the last control tower, soaked, bruised, and laughing. Mara leaned on Ramirez's shoulder, both covered in grime and blood. Someone was singing softly, a rough human tune of victory and exhaustion. Valir approached slowly. You restored balance, he said. Mara grinned weakly. Didn't come here to let you all drown. Her eyes sparkled with something fierce and wild. You build a world to never change, Valir. But change always comes. He didn't know how to answer, because deep inside him, something small and fragile stirred, a longing he couldn't name. In the following days, the Caelari repaired their cities, guided by the humans' laughter and rough humor. The skies no longer gleamed silver. Streaks of pale blue had begun to appear. To most Caelari, it was unsettling. To Valir, it was mesmerizing. He found himself standing beside Mara on a repaired observation deck. Your world, she said softly, reminds me of our old stories, places that forgot how to live until the storms came back. We fear chaos, Valir admitted. It destroyed us once. Maybe, she said, but it also made you. He studied her face, the lines of fatigue, the warmth of her eyes, the way she smiled despite everything. There was something in her presence that made the air itself feel alive. Below them, Caelari children played in shallow puddles left by the rain. They splashed each other, laughing, an ancient sound unheard for generations. Valir's throat tightened. What have you done to us? Mara chuckled. Nothing you didn't need. And as thunder rolled faintly in the distance, the first natural cloud drifted across Elyndra's sky in 1,000 years. The world, it seemed, was remembering how to breathe. Weeks later, when the humans departed, the Caelari gathered to see them off. The air still smelled faintly of rain. Valir stood among his people, his heart beating faster than it ever had. Around him, he saw change, small, quiet, but undeniable. The artists had begun to paint in colors brighter than protocol allowed. Musicians played strange, discordant melodies that made the air tremble. Children chased each other through the gardens, shouting and laughing until elders forgot to scold them. They were dreaming again. As the human shuttle lifted into the sky, the clouds parted briefly, and a single ray of sunlight broke through, gold, fierce, and pure. Valir whispered the words that had begun spreading among his kind like a sacred secret. They brought the storm, and left a piece of it inside us. Above, the humans vanished into the stars, carrying their chaos and courage with them. But Elyndra would never be the same. For the first time in millennia, the world had rhythm again. The skies moved. The people felt. And when thunder rolled across the horizon once more, no one hid. They lifted their faces to the wind and smiled.